This is the IKEA Alpstuga, and I think it might just be the most exciting air quality monitor released in the past couple of years. It costs around $35, measures CO2, PM2.5 temperature and humidity, and fits into basically any smart home platform. Nothing else comes close to doing all of that for this price. But after 3 months with 3 of these devices in my house, I can also tell you that they've produced some of the strangest CO2 data I've ever collected. Let me explain. The Alpstuga is IKEA's second generation of air quality monitors, following on from the Vindstyrka and the Vindstyrka. And I'll be honest, I know that I butchered both of those names. There's no chance that I pronounced either of them correctly, so I apologize to any Swedish viewers who might be out there. But anyway, back on track. It's also one of the first devices you can buy with Sensarion's new all-in-one sensor range. In this case, the sensor is the Sen63C. The particle sensor is a brand new chip-scale design, and the CO2 sensor is an even bigger departure. Instead of the NDIR technology used by monitors like the Aranet 4 and the Air Gradient 1, it reads CO2 through thermal conductivity. And that one choice alone explains almost everything interesting about this device that I'm going to explain today in this video, both the good and the bad. When it launched, the Alpstuga made a real splash in both the air quality and smart home communities. And for a few weeks, it seemed like this device was the only thing that everybody was talking about. The reviews were also all over the place. Some people said that it's great, especially for the price, while other people, especially commenting on Reddit, called it beyond useless for trustworthy readings. Spoiler alert, I landed somewhere in the middle. For what it's worth, IKEA didn't send me these. I bought all 3 of these devices myself, and that was easier said than done, because getting hold of them took me visiting 4 countries and 5 different IKEAs to finally find them. I wish I was joking. With the introductions out of the way, let's dive into the more interesting parts of this article and see how the device actually performs, starting with PM2.5, and it's just PM2.5, because the Alpstuga does not show PM10, likely because most low-cost particle sensors are simply not accurate enough for these larger particle sizes. I ran the 3 Alpstugas next to 2 Air Gradient 1 monitors for around 3 months. And to be clear about the graphs that I'm about to show, they're not an accuracy test because, despite wishing I had one, I unfortunately don't have an in-house reference instrument. Rather, this is a test of reproducibility, how well the units agree with each other, and the air gradient, the calibrated air gradient, are there as a point of comparison, but not as a baseline. The short version is that the Alpstugas tracked and trended in the right direction. On the chart on the screen, you can see cooking smoke that sent PM2.5 climbing, and all 5 monitors climbed together. The catch is the spread between the units, because during one morning peak, my 3 identical units read roughly 280 to 440 micrograms per cubic meter. That's a 40% spread, well outside Sensarion's specifications for the sensor, and it's systematic. The same unit always read the lowest, with the same one always reading the highest. The takeaway here is that you can generally trust the trend, but I would be cautious about reading too much into any individual reading. Without getting too technical, that's all I want to mention in this video, but I do have more charts, so please check out the blog article if you're curious to read a bit more about the PM2.5 accuracy of the Alpstuga. Let's now move on to temperature. And this one, to be honest, surprised me. A small sealed box full of electronics usually reads hot, no matter what the device. But as you can see by the graph on the screen, the Alpstuga actually read slightly cool, about a half a degree low overnight and up to 1.5 degrees in the warm afternoon peak. Humidity sits 2 to 5 percentage points low, but a steady offset like that is something that's easy enough to fix in Home Assistant. One important caveat, I only tested these in my home in the Philippines, where it's almost always above 25 degrees Celsius, so I can't really speak as to how it behaves at lower temperatures. Now, let's move on to CO2, the reason this review took me months. In the first week, I nearly wrote these devices off. I'd glance over at them, and 2 of them would read 600 to 700 ppm, while the third would read well over 1000. I'll put what I was seeing on the screen, because it genuinely had me doubting all 3 devices. And if you're just reading the number off the display, you're mostly reading noise. IKEA and Sensarion say to give the sensor about 12 hours to settle. However, in my testing, the real figure was closer to a week. I saw the same behavior consistently across 3 tests, with factory reset devices in different locations around my house. The sensors overreport for about a week, until an automatic calibration, one that you can't trigger and one that you can't disable, would pull them into line. The graph on the screen shows the average difference between my 3 Alpstugas and 2 calibrated NDIR monitors. You can watch the readings slowly close in on the NDIR baseline over the first week, and then, frustratingly, they drift apart again. To be fair, once that first calibration lands, the baseline itself does seem to adjust properly. The drifting apart is a different problem, and that problem is temperature. Even settled, my readings kept moving steadily away from the NDIR baseline and coming back. And after weeks of chasing the cause of this, the answer was something I probably should have seen coming, and it's implied by the words thermal conductivity. A sensor like this can't tell CO2 apart from anything else that changes how the air carries heat, and nothing changes that more than temperature. You can see it in the graph on screen. At around 25 degrees, the Alpstuga reads almost identically to a proper NDIR sensor, but as the room warms, the readings walk away, and sometimes by a lot. 25 degrees happens to be the exact reference condition on Sensorian's datasheet, and the sensor performs where it's specified to perform. All of the graphs are in the written review, and if you're considering this device, I highly recommend reading that because there's a lot more information there. One last note on CO2 before we move on. These sensors update rapidly and the readings are very noisy. You can see on the screen how much they bounce around from moment to moment, so be careful trusting any individual reading from this device, and focus instead on the overall trends. Which brings me to a comment I had on Reddit recently, basically asking, isn't trend spotting enough? Especially at this price point. Honestly, yes, I agree, and maybe I didn't convey that well early on or in my written review. For knowing when a room is stuffy and a window needs opening, this device does the job, but it can deviate by a few hundred ppm, and you need to know that limitation. If an accurate CO2 value is what you care about most, buy an NDIR monitor and pay a little more. So that covers the data side. Let's talk about the device itself and what it's like to live with in your home. Firstly, it's tiny, 40 by 40 by 90 millimeters, and it looks so much like an alarm clock that visitors to my home genuinely assumed it was one. Since it also shows the time, I guess they're not entirely wrong. The button on top, this one here, cycles through the readings, and underneath the device you have 4 more buttons. There's a button for pairing and reset, which I got to know far too well, a settings button for time format and temperature units, and 2 for setting the clock. The one design gotcha worth knowing about is the warning light. It only appears while CO2 or the clock is on the screen, leaving it showing temperature, and your CO2 can climb into headache territory without the LED ever lighting up. There's also no cable or power adapter in the box. On connectivity, this is a matter of a Thread device, no Wi-Fi at all. So you'll need a Thread border router, an Apple TV, a HomePod, certain Nest devices, or IKEA's own hub. I'll be frank, the pairing process nearly broke me. I almost gave up on this review before I'd even started it. I spent half an hour next to my Apple TV resetting these things over and over, with a browser tab open to buy a Thread antenna for my Home Assistant. But after I got them set up, they ran for 2 months without a single dropout. Even after a power cut, they recovered perfectly fine when many of my Wi-Fi devices struggled to reconnect. The one catch here is that the device's settings do reset after it loses power, whether from a power cut or just because it was unplugged for some reason. On screen is how my 3 Alpstugas sit in Home Assistant. The integration itself is basic, readings and a status, not many settings, but Home Assistant lets you build whatever you want on top of the data. I'll share my honest endings to the story because I think it's important to know. So after all of this testing, I decided that the Alpstugas weren't accurate enough to earn a monitoring spot in my home. And to be fair, this is because I already have more than enough monitors. However, all 3 are still plugged in because mains-powered Thread devices double as Thread routers, and our house has concrete walls that block the signals easily. So my Alpstugas now spend their days strengthening the Thread network in our home, even though I don't really use the data itself. It's not what I bought them for, but they do this job quite well. So finally, let's look at the price, $34.99. To be fair, you can find NDIR CO2 sensors for around this money, but they won't have connectivity and they won't measure particulates, temperature, and humidity alongside. And this is IKEA's scale at work. It buys more sensors and volumes that many companies simply cannot match, and it shows in the price almost nobody can compete with. The comparison I keep coming back to is to IKEA's own Vindstyrka, and again, sorry for butchering that name. The device launched at $49 with a VOC sensor instead of CO2, and much more limited connectivity. The Alpstuga improves on it in almost every way that matters to me. It's cheaper, the connectivity is better, and it measures CO2. And this is something I would take over a VOC sensor any day, even though the CO2 sensor has a lot of caveats which we've already covered. The moment you want NDIR accuracy plus this feature set, you're looking at roughly double the money. So, should you buy one? Well, if you want one monitor with a CO2 number you can trust, no, buy NDIR. But if what you want to do is blanket your home in air quality data with a sensor in every room, feeding automation, showing trends, I don't know of anything that comes close at this price. I'll be upfront, the price is really what allows me to still recommend this device for some people, because it's definitely not the accuracy. It might be the most monitor you can buy for the money. I hope you've enjoyed this short review of the Alpstuga. It's a flawed little device, and I've spent most of this video really just picking at what the flaws are. But it's also exciting. It's so affordable, and I'm glad that IKEA keeps dragging prices down in this space. Not only are they making it more accessible, but they're also improving awareness. So this video was the short version of everything. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you could check out the blog article. There, I cover all of the details in a lot more depth, especially when it comes to the accuracy and the CO2 sensor and the PM sensor. I also discuss the connectivity a bit more and how exactly that went in my house. So if you found this video useful, firstly, thank you for watching, and I would really appreciate it if you could share, subscribe, and also check out my website. I think you might find it interesting. Thank you for watching. Until next time.